Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and welcome to the Post 69. Dora. No, not the Explorer. This post comes via request from Jack. Hi Jack, Jack's a great mate of mine, and Jack is fighting really hard to be promoted at his university from a lecturer, and he's having to deal with, let's be clear here, irrational and bonkers research assessment to try and get himself promoted. And he saw in my last series the session on the politics of citation, and so he sent that around the organisation, sent the references around the organisation, and was able to get a bit of movement, able to get a bit of discussion, which is terrific. But Jack's been in touch with me again to say, look, are there other international movements that I can talk about in my institution to try and make change, not only for me, but for my particular discipline, which I won't name. Okay, so Jack, I'm absolutely thrilled to go there. Now, if you want to write, if you want to research, then you must become an advocate. You must become an activist for research assessment. I know research assessment seems very dull, it seems very boring, but it's absolutely crucial to the future of knowledge, let alone the future of academics like Jack. Now, this is important not only for your discipline or for yourself, it's important for our universities as well. They are going through a very, very difficult time, made worse by how research is being assessed and evaluated at the moment. So what's occurring at the moment is we've got all these bizarre single levers of research assessment, like citation, research, funding. These are very, very blunt instruments, and they're not appropriate through the great diversity of disciplines. Now look, we can all complain about Springer and Elsevier. You know, you just got to wind me up a bit and I'll complain about Springer and Elsevier. We can complain quite aggressively about author processing charges and fees, and we need to do that. And we can just lose our minds to the fact that entire disciplines are cut out of Scopus. We can get really angry about this, and it is a righteous rage. But we can whinge over coffee, or we can do something. And so enters Dora. What I'm asking for us today is just consider it for me. Let's all be just a little bit of an activist for academic life. Now, commercial academic publishing is a business, and it is a business that is revealing extravagant profits at the moment. The inequalities, the irrationalities of international commercial publishing are really clear. We've got this permutation and the proliferation of author processing fees, and these have been shown neither to lift the citation rates or increase the speed of publication. So what exactly are they for? Then of course we've got all the refereeing processes that are being studied at the moment for the infiltration of generative AI to create reports. All sorts of research is occurring at the moment in this area. And then of course we've got the bonkers tiering and ranking of journals. Okay, so these inelegant proxies for something, research quality, research impact if you like, these proxies are creating ambiguity and confusion, and also profound confidence in people that shouldn't have profound confidence about what constitutes important research. I mean, that's the question, isn't it? What is important research? And that's a great question to ask. So through the intervention of all these inelegant proxies about what is a quality publication, what's occurring is the gatekeeping of academic disciplines is being reinforced. So valuable research is being validated by leaders in academic disciplines that of course have benefited from the previous lax policies about research integrity and authorship. Now, so enters Dora. Dora is the Declaration on Research Assessment, Dora. This declaration was constructed in 2012 in San Francisco at the annual meeting for the American Society for Cell Biology. What a tremendous initiative it was, and it came from cell biology. Respect to all the cell biologists out there, you rock. Now, from this city and from this very specific discipline, it now covers all disciplines and an array of stakeholders, from individual researchers to entire universities, publishers, professional organisations. This is a big deal. And can I say, what makes me happy as somebody who does a lot of work on governance is it's a very well organised organisation. So we see all the sort of public mandates and debates and policies and initiatives. They're all publicly available to be seen, which is terrific. Now, Dora really has one focus, and that is to advance practical and robust strategies for research assessment. So they want it to be an international initiative, and they want it to span all areas of scholarship. It's an organisation that raises consciousness. It hopes to frame and promote a discussion about research evaluation, rather than allowing corporate publishers to tell us what to do. So they're offering a wide-ranging and robust series of metrics, and those metrics, and they're making these arguments rather than assuming these arguments. They're exploring how these research metrics operate within academic values. Very interesting. Now, for early career researchers in particular, hi team, you are rocking and rolling. You've got this. So for our ECRs, they are arguing for complete transparency in hiring, in promotion, but also in the granting of tenure. And they've activated all these fascinating interventions in equity in research discussions, demanding a much wider representation of researchers in the design of these research assessment practices. And they particularly want to address the structural injustices in academic life. Well, now, of course, we are living through all these injustices on a daily basis, and I'll just give you some data sets on this. Now, Jamie's just finished researching Qualcomm every DVC research and PVC research in Australia, looking at their publications. And the domination of very few disciplines is absolutely obvious. Not just like, oh, right, we expected that particular. Nah. The domination of very few disciplines is startling. And all of these disciplines are the ones that verify the ranking and tiering of journals, co-authorship, particular citations, practices, and of course they haven't written a singly authored book in their entire career. DVCR, PVCR. Right. Now, you know I respect all scholars. I respect all disciplines. My life's work has been a commitment to the comprehensive university. But it is upsetting, deeply upsetting, to note that the people that are leaders in research in Australia are intensifying into particular disciplines that have no real connection with any work that I do. Okay, and to give you one personal example of this, I was in a meeting in the last week with a senior academic, and she was laughing, once more the laughter, she was laughing at the, quote, unemployability of graduates in the humanities, arts and social sciences. Right, now this was a fellow academic, a woman, hello, and a leader who was laughing at other disciplines. And can I say, after the Scott Morrison intervention a few years ago, of course the employability of all the different disciplines was studied, and it was found that the arts, social sciences and humanities had a higher employability rate than the discipline that this particular woman was the head of school of. Okay, but never let facts get in the way of ideology. And research assessment is just proliferating with these ideologies and assumptions. So improving equity in research assessment is crucial, and it will finally allow for a diversity of disciplines to be respected and to be recognised. Now, Dora engages in all sorts of really interesting academic community outreach events. And can I really recommend their website to you? And of course, I always have the references at the end for you to have a look at. But their websites feature all sorts of presentations to view, to listen to, slide decks, one-pagers that are freely available for you to use in your university. And we can start to enliven our conversations about research assessment. Now this year, when I'm recording this, and I'm recording this near the end of 2024, Dora has 25,000 signatories. Now these 25,000 signatories have all agreed to confirm and believe in a movement in how research is assessed, and to provide the tools and the resources to enable that transformation in research assessment. And speaking of the tools and the policies that Dora are developing, they have one big project where they're trialling all these tools at the moment, and I'm not making this up, they call it TARA. It is the TARA project, Tools to Advance Research Assessment, TARA. And these tools, I would argue once more, are particularly important for early career and mid-career researchers. Do have a look at these tools, team. What they're trying to do is they're working with an open data set to show the criteria and show the standards that academics around the world, that these institutions are using to hire people, to promote people, to grant people tenure. So they're actually looking at the data. How are people hired? Brilliant. And the attention really is on diversifying our interpretation of the phrase research impact. They're interested in, quote, and this is their phrase, debiasing committee composition for research assessment. So they're addressing the bias. They found the bias through good scholarship. They've got the bias. Now what do we do about the bias? How do we address it? And this bias is real, and the impact of the bias is the very definition of what constitutes research, what methodologies are appropriate, where that research should be published, and all of that stuff is hurting knowledge, it's hurting the comprehensive university. And this problem, colleagues, is getting worse. Dora research what is passing at the moment for research assessment and research evaluation. And TARA is providing the toolbox for us to implement change. And yet, most of you that are watching the post this week, you've probably never heard of Dora. You thought I was going to have a nice chat about Dora the Explorer, bless. You might never have heard of Dora. Just like, I've talked endlessly about the Directory of Open Access Journals, and I've talked about that for 12 years. Now, most people haven't heard of the Directory of Open Access Journals, right? So we've got Dora, we've got the Directory of Open Access Journals. These are crucial, but they're rarely talked about. Now, why? And the answer is all academic life at the moment is focused on corporatized, commercialized, and exploitative ranking systems. And these ranking systems disrespect and in fact ignore most academic disciplines. So Dora values impact with diversity, valuing the scholars that are impactful, particularly beyond their discipline. Okay. And they provide all sorts of really interesting research impact criteria that they're testing at the moment around the world. And I'll just give you two examples that I've been really struck by this week. I've been thinking deeply about these particular ways of measuring research impact, evaluation and assessment. And two of their criteria that they're assessing at the moment is the scale of a contribution's influence. Really interested in the word scale there. And the second one, never thought of this. The ability of this particular bit of research to draw new audiences to research. We need that at the moment. Fantastic. So Dora has also opened out this conversation around the world. They provided a really good framework internationally. So we've got Europe creating COARTA, the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment, really strong organisation. And of course, universities, Norway, as always, leading the way for all of us. And they're offering really interesting interventions here, because they're looking at how research assessment can become much more holistic, spanning through the entire developmental arc of an academic's career. Very interesting. I note the University College London, so courageously, considering the RAF, has broadened out the range of their impact factors. That's excellent. Ghent University has directly involved and worked with its own faculty, its own academics, to define what is research evaluation for their promotion protocols. How fantastic is that? Bottom-up initiative. And this has meant a lot to me, because obviously in my past lives, I've spoken at Ghent, I've spoken at University College London, and I have found them, and I find them, incredibly courageous organisations, and they continue to do that in research evaluation. An area to watch, and I've certainly in the last month when I've been prepping this, I've opened a new note file on my computer for this, because I think this is the area to watch, is what's been called in some national jurisdictions a narrative CV. And what the narrative CV is focusing on is the development of career arcs, and how we construct that and present that in a CV, rather than just sort of submitting, here are my 4 big publications for assessment. Now, I am going to do at some point in the next little bit some work on the CV. I'll do a post on the CV, I think, but what I'm going to wait for is the Swiss National Science Foundation currently have a CV project that's running. They're looking at all the different models that are available for the new academic CV. So I'm going to let the Swiss work that project through, because I think they're doing incredible work. And then let's talk about the different types of CVs. I think that's important too, because that in many ways is the interface for research evaluation. So all of the focus really is trying to care for our early career researchers, so that you are able to, through your career, outline a plan for meaningful research, and then have the criteria available to assess that meaning. So this is an innovative, really important initiative. So Jack, I hope this is really helping you. This, I think, will transform the conversations that are happening in your university at the moment. This is an international movement. And as I said, Dora have all sorts of one-pagers and toolkits that you can download for free and circulate through your department and the university. So this organisation demonstrates that not only is change important, but change in research assessment and evaluation is now absolutely necessary. And I just wanted to finish off our post today with a reminder to you all that doing nothing is no longer an option. And I want to log, obviously, here Ken Hyland's incredibly courageous work through his career, and particularly his book, Academic Publishing. Great book, change your life. Change your life, that book. Now, as we all know, academic publishing is a highly profitable industry, and it's so profitable because obviously it's based on the free work that academics produce for corporations. Now, we provide our research for free. It's subsidised by some academics, by national taxpayers, but for example, all our adjunct scholars around the world that are paid to teach, any research they do is absolutely, inverted commas, free. And of course, it's not free, it's taking time away from their families, right? So we do peer reviewing for free, we do editing work for free. So an array of commercial publishers base their stock market returns, their incredible profitability on the free work and on the backs of academics. Corporate decisions are based on the exploitation of academics. And of course, it's also based on the public funding of universities. So once more, public money is subsidising private corporate profit. That's what's happening. Okay, and as Hyland has confirmed, quote, academic publishing is quite simply a massive commercial industry, end of quote. So what we're dealing with here is a series of businesses that are employing 110,000 people around the world and worth, and this is a conservative figure, I've gone conservative, worth conservatively US $23.5 billion a year. Okay, so academic publishing, corporate publishing, has become the gatekeeper of what is successful research. Instead of regulation, governance of research and innovation, regulation is undertaken financially as the first lens through, of course, these dreadful author processing fees. And of course, the ranking of journals that just magically happens to be in the interests of profit-making organisations. Okay, but this ranking of journals that's in the interest of profit-making organisations becomes a proxy for quality. And therefore, for academics, that becomes a proxy for us getting a job, being promoted. Okay, so remember how singly authored monographs, books, are excluded from almost all citation indices. And even if they are included, there is no jurisdictional difference between the writing of a book and the authorship of that and the writing of an article. And further, there's no separation or differentiation between the single authorship of an article and an article with 5, 10, 20, or indeed, as happened a few weeks ago, 5,000 authors. The citation that's given to an article with 5,000 authors is the same value as a citation given to a single authored book. So Thomas ISI offers this annual journal citation report, and they've done it since I studied. I used to pull those annual reports out of the library when I was doing my research when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And what the ISI does is give an impact factor for each journal that's in its index. So the higher the impact factor, the IF, supposedly the better the journal. Now, all this stuff about the quality of a journal is based on a series of inelegant proxies, things that don't necessarily align. So, for example, the relationship between citations and the quality of the research. Okay, now as we've talked about in so many vlogs in the last sort of decade really, bad research is heavily cited. It has to be cited because it's got to be disproven. So bad research is heavily cited. Retracted research continues to be cited. I've been doing work this week on some retracted articles and their citation patterns. It's unbelievable. So obviously there is an assumption that the citations that an article receives then reflects on the journal in which the article was published. See the problems here? Okay. Now, this is rubbish. Absolute rubbish. A very small percentage of articles are highly cited. So you see what happens is a low cite article in one of these journals gains from the impact factor of the whole journal, right? So Seglin's great study, and this was amazing, showed that the most cited 15% of articles count for 50% of citations, and the most cited 50% of articles claim 90% of the citations. But all these articles gain from the impact factor. See the problem? So this is, you heard me say this is an inelegant proxy. This is pretty well rubbish, right? So let's use Nature as an example. Let's go there. Let's use Nature as an example with their $11,000 author processing fees for an article. 89% of citations in Nature came from 25% of their articles. The famous mouse genome paper that has thousands of citations, of course, fantastic paper. But most articles in Nature have far less than 20 citations. But of course, the impact factor of Nature magically ignores the citation of the rest of these papers. And of course, also Here we go. The high impact factor is a biased mechanism because it validates disciplines that publish a high number of journals, and it validates the disciplines that in those journals they publish a lot of articles. So you can see volume is rewarded. If you've got a small and specialised discipline without the volume of journals, without the volume of articles, you're gone. You're gone. And of course, here's the kicker. You're ready for this. Impact factors favour journals that have a high proportion of review articles rather than original research. Right. So Thomas ISI doesn't capture citations in books, never has. And interesting, through its history and its profile, that singular absence, that a whole platform of research is ignored. And yet that's never been enough to go, you know what, maybe we shouldn't use that as much as we do. And of course, that's why Google Scholar changed the world. So Google Scholar, again, firstly, remember, another corporation. There's no outside of capitalism. Google Scholar, corporation. They've got their 20th anniversary this year. And can I say, I'm smiling so much because when I used to do research assessment in the United Kingdom, I'd be in a committee, all blokes leading their particular field of research, and I was running a field of research. And I said to them right at the start, going, you're using all these proxies, Web of Science, why aren't you using Google Scholar? It's free. It's free, it's much more expansive. Why aren't you at least triangulating your esteem indicators against Google Scholar? Oh, it's rubbish, it's rubbish. Unbelievable, right? So Google Scholar has changed the game. And I remember where we started with Google Scholar to have it now actually punching above its weight, which is great. Why Google Scholar matters is it's freely available and it collects the diversity of disciplines. It doesn't muck about. All the disciplines are represented. Multiple languages are represented. It's doing pretty well with nitros. Further work to do, but it's doing well with nitros. So we need to remember that all these research measurement tools are gatekeepers of knowledge, okay? They are corporate and they are commercial, right? And of course, they also continue the domination of English language journals. And of course, this is a colonial knowledge system. We can't get away from this. And it also undermines what Goetz, of course, described as, quote, local knowledge. This is a big deal to me. If you're working in a particular nation state that other nation states aren't terribly interested in, should you just stop investigating your particular environment? Because it may not get citations. Really? You think? Now, we can all support this, and I'll use the quote, publishing from the periphery. That comes from Highland. Publishing from the periphery. Great phrase, problematic phrase as well, because obviously, you know, when you're in the, what's the periphery? When you're in the periphery, it feels like the centre, right? I'm in Palmerston North. This is the glamour centre of the Southern Hemisphere. This is not the periphery. This is the centre. And that's the point. The periphery is in the eye of the beholder, okay? And you know that I've spent a lot of my last 10 years of my life supporting the journals and the research and the scholars in Algeria, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Iran, in Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. And I did that because I read a study, I think about 12 years ago, that said that people would not work with these nation states. So they had low citation rates because people, you know, not on the periphery were not working with these colleagues. So I looked at the list and I went, see all those people? I'm going to start working almost exclusively with those nation states. And it's been such a privilege and a pleasure to do that. Outstanding scholars, outstanding work. And look, if I'm going to give my peer review time for free, why wouldn't I give it to an Algerian journal rather than a journal based in the United States? I mean, this is the question for all of us. Do you believe in the internationalization of knowledge or not? Simple question. Simple question. And if you do believe in the internationalization of knowledge, you've got to transcend that centre periphery model, transcend yourself and learn something, build bridges, collaborate. And then, of course, there is the issue of authorship. We have senior research leaders in Australia right now, today, that are recording, that are stating publicly that they're publishing between 40 and 100 articles every single year. All co-authored, heavily co-authored, obviously. And of course they receive all the citations from all those articles that they've co-authored. Now, are we meant to take this seriously? That a human being can meaningfully contribute to 100 refereed articles a year while in a full-time leadership job? None of this is believable. But the problem is these people have been appointed and promoted on the basis of that track record, on the basis of these bizarre authorship practices. And of course, they're then getting all the citations from all those articles, and then those people are then evaluating the research of others, discrediting singly authored articles, singly authored books. Now, we know journal authoring practices and policies are tightening, and that is so welcome. But the damage of this legacy of lies is going to take a generation to wash out. Right. Now, of course, more cases of historic research misconduct are appearing, and that is tremendous, including, of course, Nobel Prize winners. Interesting. So research evaluation, as we've talked about, is highly political, it is volatile, and right now, today, it's going through radical international re-evaluation. The costs of this intellectual theft, fabrication, and lying, they're starting to be revealed, colleagues. The gatekeepers who have patrolled our academic exchanges for a century, the confirmation bias of peer reviewers, all of this is starting to be revealed. So this is our time to talk about research, talk about research evaluation, to read widely, to read wildly, to read with intellectual generosity internationally through all the national systems. And we need to thank and we need to respect Dora for framing new ways of thinking about research assessment and research evaluation. You see, there are great people and great commitments that exist around the world. And our job simply is to read their work, use their work, and continue to have a dialogue about change and transformation and justice. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.